also maximizes the safety of the person on the other side of the door.
You know, as I listen to that, it's interesting because I understand the training, but it sounds like he's talking about when police respond to the call for a burglary. Now, she's walking into an apartment, and again, this is what the whole case is about, her state of mind. But she believes she's walking into her own apartment, so she believes she's coming upon a burglar in her own home.
Right.
Which is different than getting a call on the radio. We've got a Spreaker one now. We got a burglary in progress, and you're responding to it.
Okay.
So it just happens. So to me, that's different. And I don't know. Do you think it's fair to hold her to her training and what she's supposed to do in responding to a burglary when she comes upon one in her own home?
Yes. It's the same as how doctors and lawyers are held to a higher standard. As officers of the court, you and I are expected to conduct ourselves perhaps at a higher standard than regular folks. As representatives of Court TV, right? You know, you're not posting
by my employer, maybe, but by a court of law, by a jury. Should a police officer who is arguably off duty?
Okay, wait, I will. Hold on.
Even if the police officer's on duty, should they be held to a higher standard than a citizen coming home to their home and finding a burglar, and the citizen doesn't have to do anything, but you as a police officer have to somehow retreat or take cover, whereas a citizen in Texas would not have to do that?
Okay, here's why. You cannot escape her training, number one, and number two, the fact that she was in uniform. So you have to hold her to a higher standard. Plus, wait, hold on a second. The defense is opening the door. They are saying that she was sleep deprived because of her job. So if the defense is going to open the door and bring in her employment as a police officer as part of the reason this tragedy occurred, all bets are off.
Wow. And here's the problem that I have with it. And I'm not saying that she's not guilty. What I'm saying here is merely, does someone who's a police officer have a different standard to defend themselves than an ordinary citizen would in the state of Texas? That does not seem
under
fair.
The law, wait, under the law.
I don't think they do under the law.
Under the law, they do not. Under the law, they do not. However, it is how you argue it to a jury. So when you're arguing the elements as a prosecutor, the foundation for that argument includes, hey, this person should know better because this person is trained, because this person has been in this situation before, because this person is walking around with a police uniform and you are representing the police department when you do that.
I get that.
I understand what you're saying under the law.
And that's one of the reasons she was fired from her job.
Right.
But now we're talking about someone who's been arrested and charged with murder. And again, it's not about is she guilty or not guilty, but should she be treated the same as any other ordinary citizen? And it seems to me the prosecutor doesn't want that to happen, is holding this officer to a different standard and is trying to couch this entire thing as a police shooting while the defense is going in the opposite direction, saying, no, she's off duty.
But they're not going,
she's off duty. This isn't.
But they're using.
She's not. They're arguing. She's not responding to a burglary. A burglary is happening in front of her.
But wait, they also brought out.
Mind.
But the prosecutions brought out that because of her job, she knew there were robberies happening in the area. Because of her job, she knew that area was having a crime problem. So she's on heightened alert.
Right. Heightened alert, but
so if the defense
still
is going to bring it out, then I think, listen, you're right. Under the law, she is not held to a higher standard. Like when I was talking about how murder in the first degree, if you kill a cop in New York, it's automatically, boom, murder one. It's not like that. It's not in the statute.
Right.
But at
that's
the same time, the argument can be made.
Yeah, the arguments are being made, and people, and I've been reading social media. I'm guilty. I try to get a sense of what people are saying because people at home who are watching this trial are responding the way jurors may respond. And a lot of people are holding her to a higher standard.
And why are you annoyed by that? She's the one who's bringing her freaking uniform home. What's wrong with her?
Because
Hey,
ultimately, if you're
I
being
can't believe
charged
you're
with
thinking this is
murder,
okay.
the law should be the same for me as for a police officer, for self-defense, for murder, for everything else. There shouldn't be a difference.
It is.
And here's
Intentional
the
unknowing.
problem. If we hold them to a higher standard, then we're holding ordinary citizens to a lower standard, which scares me as well. It should just be one standard for all.
It is. The law is the
But
same.
that's not what the prosecutor's arguing, and I think that's unfair. I think that's unfair. I
well,
think that's dangerous.
She shouldn't have worn her uniform home. She shouldn't be opening the door by arguing sleep deprivation. She shouldn't be blaming the job.
There's a lot of things she
for
shouldn't
being
have done.
so unbelievably. I mean, listen, this was stupid.
Well,
this was a stupid crime. This was stupid. It was a tragedy that didn't have to happen.
If
she wasn't sexting, instead of she was watching where the hell she was walking, there was a bright red floor mat in front of her. This kid died. I mean, this is one of the worst crimes that I have seen, since I've been an adult.
Well, both of them, Jean, the victim in the case, could not be more innocent. He is an accountant.
Watching Thursday Night Football on his couch.
Eating
vanilla ice cream.
Vanilla ice cream. Is there anything more innocent than just sitting at home after a hard day's work, watching television and eating a bowl of ice cream? That's should be the perfect night of relaxation. He shouldn't have a worry in the world. And someone comes into his home, shoots and kills. And I'm not arguing any of that. I'm just saying when it's time to judge someone, I do not want different standards for different people. We're all people. We're all citizens. We all have the same rights and we all have the same responsibilities. And I don't think it should be different just because you're a police officer, or it should be less because you're not a police officer. You shouldn't be able to be more willy-nilly with your gun because you're not a police officer. Just saying.
Okay. And I completely disagree. I think that people like you and I, because we are officers of the court, that we should be held to a higher standard.
I'm officially retired. I'm officially retired from the bar, so do not hold me to any different standard.
Okay, so you could be a doofus.
Than
I
producer
won't because
Dave, please. Same standard.
And just like how doctors have to stop and help someone, whether it's on a plane, you know the drill. But again, it is about, because you're saying that she shouldn't be held to a higher standard. Well, you know who's holding her to that standard? It is the defense. The defense opened the door, and that is why this is perhaps being looked at like a police shooting. But what does the defense have to do in this case? We're going to talk about that next.
For more Court TV, watch it on cable, over the air, Roku, or go to CourtTV.com and stream live gavel-to-gavel coverage. Catch up on the big moments from our current cases and relive some of Court TV's most historic trials. Court TV, your front row seat to justice.
Hey, Vinny, what did you think about the defense's opening statement where he told us we're going to hear from Amber Guyger?
That's amazing. That's amazing. I've seen it a few times.
Very few.
I've seen it a couple of times where it was said and then the person didn't testify.
That's my concern.
Yeah, but no, I think she has to testify. I think she's got to tell her story. I mean, yeah, you've got the 911 call, you've got other evidence, but get up there and take this jury inside your mind. Try to help them understand why it's reasonable that you shot and killed an accountant who's sitting home eating a bowl of vanilla ice cream while watching television in his own house.
Yes. But I want to talk a little bit about process. And that is defense attorney process, saying that in the opening statement. What if all of a sudden she freaks out and goes, I'm not testifying? I think it's a bad look.
Yeah, unless you come back and say, yeah, you heard from her in that 911 call.
Yeah, but right.
Yeah.
But didn't he say, I think he said like, you're going to hear from her. But okay, so he set out the defense otherwise. So that's number one. So this is a preview to our listeners. But you better be watching this trial, because when Amber Guyger testifies, the whole world will be watching Court TV.
Yeah, have to.
Okay, so let's listen to a clip from the defense's opening statement.
And she fired twice, and she thought, oh my God, I just had to defend my life. And she approaches the body, and the adrenaline, the fear turns into horror as she starts processing, oh my God, that's not my table. I don't have that ottoman. oh my God, that ironing board is not mine. Oh my God. It starts to dawn on her as she approaches Mr. John's body. What a horrible, horrible mistake she has just made.
Okay, so we went into this trial, Vinny. We knew they were going to talk about mistake of fact, and that was going to be their defense. But it's a little bit, this is very complicated.
It is a very complicated defense.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So first thing that everyone needs to know is the first part, before we can get mistake of fact, which is the defense, the jury has to decide if the prosecution has proved beyond a reasonable doubt all the elements of the crime. Then the jury can consider if the prosecution has proved that the defendant did not make a mistake.
Right. Because the
I don't even know what I just said. This is so confusing.
Well, this is the burden. The burden is always on the prosecution to prove the case. And sometimes by proving your case, you have to prove that something doesn't exist, which is what the defense is alleging here, which is the mistake, that this was not a reasonable mistake.
Right. And what I thought the prosecution did really well in their opening is that they set up every the path from parking the car to going to Botham Jean's apartment, showing how it wasn't a reasonable mistake. Every step, unreasonable, parking the car, unreasonable, not seeing the four, unreasonable, getting on the elevator, unreasonable, not realizing that, hey, this is not the same view that I'm used to every single day. Unreasonable that I didn't notice that plant or the non-plant in the hallway. Unreasonable about the red floor mat. So they did a good job with that part, whereas the defense is saying it was reasonable. Oh, the other part that I thought was really good. What'd you think of this? When they said, how come when she entered the apartment, she didn't notice the smell?
The smell, right? Because a big part of the case is that Botham Jean smokes marijuana. He does it medicinally because he's having problems with Adderall, and it was explained and it was embraced by the prosecution. So how does she not reasonably recognize that smell of marijuana? How does she not see the floor mat? How does she not recognize these hallways she's walking down and how different they are? How does she not recognize when she gets out of her car and it's an open air parking spot, how does she not see that the skyline is so much higher?
Yeah, that's it, the skyline. Right. And so this seems to be the big difference. Was the mistake reasonable or unreasonable? But I think it's so tricky because, again, you can't even get to that until the jury at least has to say, did the prosecution prove it wasn't a mistake?
Right.
So it's very confusing.
It's very confusing and will be confusing for the jury as well. Now, one thing the defense has done is they sent their investigator to that apartment complex.
Yes.
And found 92 people who parked on the wrong floor. They found 42 people that parked on mistakenly between the third and fourth floor, which are the floors in question here. So is it unreasonable if other people are making the same mistake? Obviously, the big difference is how this one resulted. It's not just someone can't find their car the next day. It's somebody went in and shot someone.
There's another tricky part of what the defense has to do and the law surrounding this. Let's play another clip from the defense's opening statement.
And when you apply your reason, and when you apply common sense and the law of self-defense, it will be clear. It will be clear that the only verdict, the only justice in this case is to find Amber Guyger not guilty.
So when I heard this in the opening statement, now I'm totally confused because I thought we were talking about mistake of fact. I understand, okay, so the people have to prove it wasn't a mistake, and then the defense says, oh, yeah, it was a mistake, plus it was a reasonable mistake, and now we're talking about self-defense.
Right.
What?
Because if she has made the mistake in her mind that she reasonably believes that she's in her own apartment, then she's defending herself from a burglar who the defense says is approaching her and not listening to her commands and not, as she pulled her weapon, is still coming towards her 30 feet, 25 feet, 20 feet, 15 feet. And then she has to defend herself in that moment. And from the defense perspective, this is a justified shooting based upon a reasonable mistake of fact that she thought she was in her apartment when in fact she's in the apartment of an innocent man, Botham John.
You need to write that down, and we need to fax it or text it or email it to the judge, because that's